Hi, so I'm Louise Osborn and I'm the creator of Maudie's Rooms, and I'm standing in this great big old customs and immigration house in Bute Street, which is the most amazing place, absolutely full of atmosphere and history. And this is the site where we are setting Maudie's Rooms. When I first approached Sherman Companies a few years ago, I went to them with this book, a picture book, because I couldn't think of any other way really of processing my thoughts. So I did a combination of scraps really, notes and images that I found, and I made drawings. I wanted to base it on an old lady character called Maudie, who was a real character and used to work in a big old boarding house where my husband lived when he was a young man. And Maudie was the old lady who cleaned the stairs. And my husband spent quite a lot of time trailing on her apron strings. And in this house there were lodgers, and I began to think, what an amazing holding form for a piece of theatre, a house full of lodgers. I started by creating the characters. Maudie, who's very partial, by the way, to donuts, who's a big, warm, bosomy old lady, and the characters who live in the house. And the characters are drawn from ideas that have been lingering in my mind for a long time. So there's a pair of twins who are refugees. There's a little boy called Arlo who, well, what have I written here? He was extremely curious about things, and that, it seemed, could be a problem to some. And then I came across a book about 5 years ago called 12 Years a Slave, which of course has now since been made into a mega film by Steve McQueen. But this story of a character called Solomon Northrop really captivated me. And in combination with finding this house, the immigration house, I knew that I wanted a character who was an old sailor, Solomon, who had a story to tell. So he lives in that house also. And this image from the book, which is Solomon, and this sign, which says no blacks, no Irish, no dogs, is based on my best friend from primary school, who had a Nigerian father and an Irish mother. And when they came to the UK and tried to find lodgings in the 1960s, this was a sign that was in many, many of the boarding houses, and they could find nowhere to live. What was always really scary was, how was I going to move from the ideas in this book, which had inside-out environments, characters who had gardens in their rooms and forests and all this hoarded newspaper and artifacts. How was I going to move from the book into making a piece of theatre? And that was really my challenge.